Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk. And this one is a little bit different than ones we've done in the past. My name is Stephen Meade. I'm the managing broker here at Domicile Real Estate. And this is basically where I talk about things that don't really fit into one of our other videos. And this week is a little bit of a collection of two things that we're going to talk about. So the first thing is we're going to talk about my predictions of the next 90 days. And I'm going to give you the caveat that this is based on exactly how things look today, and things are always changing. And two, understand that it is an educated guess. So I'm going to hope to give you a little bit of insight on what is coming in the next 90 days, which would be basically through about early to middle of March of 2023. The second thing we're going to talk about is the reason why almost all of the real estate advice that you are given is wrong, or is very likely to be wrong, and especially wrong for you. So I'm actually going to start with that one first, and then we're going to talk about the predictions. So I have a feeling more people want to hear the predictions, and then we'll do in 90 days, we'll kind of maybe take a look back and see how right or wrong I was. So we're going to start off with the reasons why the advice that you're given is usually incorrect. And the biggest reason why that is this is a market, and the real estate market has almost always been this way. This is not something brand new. The real estate market is incredibly dynamic, and the advice that was good 30 days ago, 60 days ago, 6 months ago is not necessarily true now. So you have a whole lot of people out there that want to sell content. News organizations, they want you to click and read, and that's totally fine. This isn't a partisan thing in any way. This is just the nature. That business is an advertising business. They sell space to advertisers, and they need clicks, eyeballs, and attention. That's what they're trying to do. So you have to understand that a lot of these parties have a vested interest in things that are clear, concise, and simple. And I am a big fan of those things as well. But the real estate market is not clear, it's not concise, and it's not simple. It's none of those things. And let me give you a perfect example of that, right? Here is a perfect example. 6 months ago, if you came to me and you said, I'm interested in buying a fixer-upper, my advice to you would be don't. And the reason why my advice would be don't is because the price differential between, in any given, say, neighborhood, right? We'll use that as an example. In a given neighborhood with similar sized homes, the price difference between the best, nicest home and sort of the crummiest house was very compressed 6 months ago. You didn't save that much money by buying a fixer. Instead, I told people, buy what you want and what you can afford. Today, however, which is very different than 6 months ago, my advice is that you should absolutely be looking for those fixers, because those nice properties have maybe moved a little bit like this. But those properties that were here, they have moved a lot more. Those lower end properties have really slid quite a bit more, and it is a very soft market. Another piece of advice, right? Generally speaking, people say that December is not a great time to buy or sell a house. I'm not sure about selling exactly. That depends on the house. But for buying, it is almost always a great time for buyers. And this year, especially. And the reason being that it's a great time for buyers is because if someone has their home for sale in December, they are much more likely to really want to sell it, because they have followed that conventional wisdom that December is not good. And here they are with their house on the market. Do you think they are motivated to sell their house? Another thing that we're hearing about, and I think that is a common piece of advice, is this notion that recessions make real estate cheaper. I'll see if Cassandra, my lovely assistant, can find the graph for that. Maybe we'll have that put up here. But the reality is, in the last recession, yes, house prices went down significantly. But in most recessions, meaning more than half, home prices actually go up during the recession. So if you have read an article about how you're going to save a bunch of money if a recession happens on buying a house, that is not necessarily true. In fact, statistically, it is not true, right? It is more likely that home prices will go up during that recessionary period. So there's a lot of these things and a lot of this kind of universal advice out there. There is no universal advice in real estate, with the exception of maybe the advice is that in the long run, buy as soon as you possibly can if you're a young person out there. As soon as you're able to make that move safely in your life, right? Which is not for everybody at all times, that you should do that. That giving yourself that long runway. But really, as far as universal in real estate, that's about it. Every other rule, there are exceptions to those rules. Um, Let me give you another example. I'm a big fan of buying quality. And what does buying quality mean? Buying quality means buying homes in areas that people want to be. I think overall, that's a great strategy. But that doesn't mean there aren't exceptions. Sometimes there are particularly great opportunities, right? For example, to buy in an area that might be an emerging area, but it turns out that Amazon is going to open up a facility there. And you know that. Well, it's very likely that that area will do well in the next 5 years and you will get better returns if you're an investor. So all of these other rules have exceptions and it's very much based on the time. And when I tell people, what does a good real estate broker do for you? Well, they're going to give you the advice that's great for the right now. That's what they're going to do for you. They're not going to regurgitate what's in a script, right? And I'm not saying all brokers are good. Not all brokers are good. But good brokers will give you the advice that is good for you right now and help walk you through and give you information on these critical decisions that you're making. So let's move on to my predictions for the next 90 days. And this will be fun. I think Cassandra's going to probably put them up there next to my head there as I rattle these things off. My number one prediction is that I think rates will bounce back up from where they are today. So as of today, which is Thursday, December 8th, for anybody keeping track, conforming 30-year fixed rate loans, you can dip into the high fives. I don't think that will last, and I will think that in January that those rates will bump back up. And my reasoning for that, and I don't know how much they'll bump back up, but I'm thinking probably somewhere to the low sixes, maybe mid sixes. Here's my reasoning. Everyone has put the cart before the horse. The Fed announced that they think they can begin easing rate increases. That doesn't mean rate increases stop, right? That does not mean that rate increases will stop. In fact, they will continue. And because of that, I feel like this is a happy little exuberant moment in the bond market. And I think there's going to be a bit of a bounce back come January. Now, for the rest of the year, I think my outlooks may be a little bit better, but I think in that next 90 days, we are going to see a little bit of a rebounce back to that. So my other prediction in the next 90 days is what is going to happen to home prices. And my answer to this question is a little bit more complicated because, as I mentioned earlier, if you just talk about median prices, I don't think that you're really giving the whole picture. Certain homes will be much more resilient. And I even think as a buyer, some of your leverage might actually disappear in the next 90 days. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, especially if rates bounce a little bit, but here is my reasoning. When rates go up, that has two big effects on things. Effect number one is that affordability, especially for new home buyers, goes down. And what does this do? It drops demand. But it also has a significant effect on the number of people who put their homes on the market to move up. And so that's what we're actually seeing in the market right now. The reason why we have not seen big price reductions, despite the fact that we have seen rates go up very significantly since earlier this year, there's not a lot of inventory. So, if I were the kind of person that I am, if I were in the market as a first-time home buyer, I'm looking to those homes that aren't selling, the ones that are kind of the ugly ducklings, especially the ones that have problems that I can fix, right? This doesn't mean buy the house that backs to railroad tracks that nobody is buying, right? But if you're able to get into one of those houses are the softest right now. And I think those will continue to be the softest homes. But I do think that this run of being able to dictate your terms, I think that's going to end in towards the end of January, early February. I think the other thing that I'm predicting is that we will have a recession. I don't know whether that will officially start in the next 90 days, but I'm predicting that that check is in the mail. And my reasoning is this. Right now, despite recent layoffs in the tech sector, which are very isolated, to be honest, we still have more job openings than we have people to work in the workforce. And until that situation is solved, I don't see us really solving the inflation problem, and the Fed is not going to make the mistake of letting up too early on this. So they will wait until unemployment starts to move. And if they will keep on this current path, maybe in a slower pace, until that unemployment number moves, because I think it will have to move to get to target inflation. And then I do have kind of one more prediction about the next 90 days. I do think that what we're going to see is this behavior we've seen all along, right? And that is that whenever we have a very jolted market, right? And that's what I would describe this, consumers need a little bit of time to get used to that. Buyers and sellers need time to get used to that. And they need to feel a sense of stability happening, right? And I think that is going to come in the next 90 days. And I think that's going to result in an increase in demand. And we're going to see buyers kind of say, well, this is the new normal. And what are my choices, right? If you're a first-time home buyer, especially, these are your choices looking in the next 90 days. Option number one, right? Your first option is you can stay a renter, right? And the problem with that option, right, is pretty obvious, that in the long run, rents tend to go up over time, and you don't really own anything, and you don't really have very much control, right, over your housing. So you don't have really very much stability. And so, the problem with that is, how does that affect you over the next 5 years, right? Like when you've lost that time. So option number one is that, you stay a renter. Option number two is that, you buy something and you don't necessarily like the interest rate and you don't necessarily like your payment, but it gets you out of sort of renter nation, as it were, and it gets you into stability, right? Like you know exactly what your payment's going to be, and you know you're going to be able to live there as long as you would like to live there, right? And I think I think we're going to see more people pick that option number two. I think a lot of people are very afraid right now because they just feel like things are very uncertain. I think that we're going to have a little bit more stability come to our market in the next 90 days, and that stability actually increases demand almost always. And I predict that we're going to see some of the leverage that buyers have right now on these undesirable properties. I mean, right now, you can ask for closing cost credits. You can do all these things as a buyer right now. And I think some of that stuff is going to go away because of some of these buyers returning to the market. We've already seen that. We've already had some people reach out to us. They're talking about, hey, we want to chat in January, right? So we're already seeing kind of some shapes of that. Like the consumer behavior is looking different. So those are my predictions for the next 90 days. We'll have to check in 90 days and see how correct I was about that. I'll give you a bonus prediction. I think the prognosis for 2023 as a whole is pretty good. I think we're going to see values in that median sense be flat or maybe increase slightly. And by slightly, I mean 3% or less, which is pretty much flat. And I do think we're going to see a little bit of easing on interest rates towards the end of the year, meaning that they're at today's rates or less by then. So bonus predictions for the entire year for 2023. Thanks for watching. Again, if you are looking to buy or sell real estate and you'd like kind of another upper level of expertise, that is what we do and what we provide. So if you were looking to buy in the Los Angeles or Orange County areas, definitely reach out to us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell. And we will see you again real soon.